take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. As you know, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for hitting play today. Super excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Love it. Love it, love it, love it that you're here. By the way, I would also love it, just saying, if you jump on over to your favorite social media of choice, whether that be Facebook, Instagram, or the Twitter. You can find us at OPS Podcast Show. We are under that as our little name. Hashtag OPS Podcast Show, whatever. But help me welcome in my guest today. Super excited about this guy. Now, little background. I don't know about anybody else. I had one of those iPod Nano. I had one of those Shuffle. I had one of those like iPod Touch things. You remember those before the iPhone? There were things before the iPhone. I know. Believe it or not, there were. iPhone 14. Hello. That's where we are now. But back in the day, I had one of these. And in fact, I probably even had them on CD even. Yep, that's true. Yep, also had that. But I really credit my wife's stepdad. Because see, back in 1997, he took me to this Promise Keepers event. And this group was there. These 4 guys. They made up a band called For Him. So here he is. By the way, he has had 25 years of voice and stage performances. He has. Just saying. That's a lot. Together with his dynamic voice and his bandmates, they made up this Christian band, as I was just talking about, For Him. They've sold over 5 million records, garnering 25 number 1 singles and numerous Grammy Awards and Dove Awards, nominations and wins. In fact, Andy himself, this is crazy to me, Andy himself, more than 5,000 concerts, 10,000 stage appearances, and an estimated 25,000 hours of performing and singing. It's amazing he still has a voice left. But he is one of those sought-after voices that people come from around the country to learn and to grow from him. And so hopefully we can learn and grow from him today as well. Help me welcome in my friend, Andy Chrisman. Andy, how are you today?
Hey, Neil. Thanks for having me on your show.
We were talking in our little preliminary chats that I actually saw you guys at Promise Keepers in Eugene, Oregon. You guys being your bandmate. Were you a band? I mean, band implies like musical instruments, though. Help me with that, maybe.
Yeah, if you want to include the term boy band as a real band.
I almost went there, but I was like, I'm not sure I want to do that to him. But you kind of were like, so if you were a boy band, like of the 90s, well, you were in the 90s. So
we were kind of I think we were the first boy band out there, although we were, we were in our mid 20s, a couple of the guys in their late 20s. So could we be boys? We were the first man band.
Were you the Jordan Knight of For Him? Or were you the Donnie Wahlberg of For Him?
I don't know how to answer that question.
I think you were the Joey McIntyre because rumor has it you were the youngest. Am I getting that right? Okay.
Correct.
So you would have been to help because my wife is a big New Kid on the Block fan. She never got into NSYNC. I think you would be the Joey McIntyre of For Him.
All right. Yeah.
You can put that on a plaque. I mean, I want credit, though. I want credit. All right. That's all I'm asking. So, Andy, getting into this, we love to lead off every show with this question. So hopefully, we can do this. It's cool. What size shoes do you wear?
I wear 9.
All right. There's no judgment. There's no judgment. Okay. This is a judgment-free zone. This is Planet Fitness. All right. This is a judgment-free zone. And is there a style or a brand?
Well, let's just say for shoe size, I'm extremely average because 9s are the hardest to find anywhere. They're always sold out. I don't. I just like to buy what looks good. I have a lot of Ons. That's kind of my shoe of choice right now. So I've got probably 6-7 pairs of those. I'm into boots right now. I found this great place in Las Vegas that makes handmade leather boots, and they're the most comfortable, stylish things I've ever worn. So I kind of have a collection of those going. And I'm from Texas originally, so that kind of makes sense for me.
Yeah, it does. And I get that. A friend actually at work just got some Ons in Bend, Oregon, of all places.
Oh, yeah. Not Nike's, huh?
And I saw him. Yeah, and I was like, I need to get a pair. And he goes, you'll never buy another pair of shoes again. I was like, buddy, come on.
Did you get them?
I have not, no.
I will say, I don't disagree with him. I had the same conversation with Mark Harris, one of the other For Him guys. I met him in Orlando, and we went into a shoe store, and he tried to sell me on Hoka's, and I tried to sell him on Ons. And so we each bought a pair of the other's favorite shoes. And I got to say, those Hoka's are pretty amazing. But I'm still an Ons fan. If you buy a pair of Ons and you'll you'll thank me for it. You'll thank your friend for it.
It's the whole idea that, I've grown up, well, sixth grade on, I've been a Jordan, North Carolina fan. So the idea of not wearing something North Carolina, light blue or Jordan related is weird.
You gotta expand, bro. There's a lot of the world out there you haven't seen yet.
I know. And I used to wear Asics when I ran 5Ks. All right. So on to you. We're in this new exciting season, and I love seasons because I think they give us a chance to change. Not only the physical seasons like winter, fall, spring being amazing because March Madness happens, also my birthday. But for me too, a new season brings new people and new topics. And so today we're really centering around this kind of walk away moment. Do you have one of those, Andy? And if so, what was it like?
I have several. I think my story over the last probably 40 years of my life is those walk away moments are changing points in my life. I think I have maybe 4 or 5 of those. And walk away to me initially has a bit of a negative term. I feel like it's a transition for me. It's a transition moment. So I think the first one I can think of was just being in college, and I knew that I was supposed to be a musician. I knew that I had a gift to sing and make music and be on stage and be good in front of an audience. And I just didn't think that was I couldn't figure out how to make money at that. Does that make sense? I couldn't see myself actually making a living. So I was going to college for what I was good at, which was math and engineering and all that kind of stuff. And I had a transition moment, a walk away moment during church one weekend when I was going to church at my college church where I was leading worship. And I just felt like God say, if you trust me, I'm on the other side of this decision. And so I did. I basically just said, all right, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. If it's clean the bathrooms at the church, if it's go to the mission field, I'll do it. I just know that what I'm doing right now and where my path is heading, I'm terrified. I don't want to be stuck in a cubicle. Not that that's a bad thing, but personally for me, I couldn't see myself in a cubicle or going to an office 9 to 5 every day. Yeah, I just kind of prayed a little prayer that day at church, and about a week after that, the guy that ran the group Truth, he gave me a call, just kind of cold called me. Got my number from somebody else and said, hey, I heard you could sing. I'd love to see if you'd like to come audition for me. So I remember calling my dad and just being terrified that he would, say, no, I'm paying for a college education. You can't run away right now. Because I was like a junior. I was just starting my junior year in college, halfway through my junior year in college. And I'm just like, he's going to say no and shoot me down. I'll never forget. He said, hey, son, don't give yourself the chance to say what if. You're young enough. If this doesn't work out, you can always come back to school. And so he fronted me the money for a plane ticket to go out and meet this group. And I went out and they hired me on the spot. So that was my first walkaway moment. I walked away from college to go out on the road. And so that would be the first one. That was a life-changing moment for me. And it took guts to leave a sure thing. Man, I was going to graduate and I already had, my advisor was telling me, dude, with the degree you're in, you'll start out with some pretty good money at just about any company of your choosing.
So let me understand this correctly. You would have gone on to a comfortable life in some respects, in this office environment, making pretty good money, to a band life where you're living out of a van, not down by the river, by the way. Maybe Matt Foley was there. I don't know. But you go to a van life where you're rooming in like bunk beds, staying up all night, traveling with really, you didn't even know any of your guys yet from For Him or any of the other amazing artists that came out of Truth, which, by the way, old school YouTube documentary. I watched a little of you guys, you and the guys from For Him talking about coming out of Truth and who came out of that.
Yeah.
There's some amazing artists that we now listen to today that people don't realize were in Truth, by the way. The list is long. It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
So you gave all that up. Oklahoma State, if I'm not mistaken, too,
Correct.
right? Cowboys?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So go Cowboys.
Pistols firing.
You gave all that up on a whim and a call. I mean, it almost sounds like a Bon Jovi song. You were truly living on a prayer. I don't know.
I'm not a Bon Jovi fan, by the way. So
I just was trying to work that in. That was for a friend of mine.
The podcast is over if we go back to Bon Jovi. Yeah, I mean, there are just times in your life, I know everybody feels this, where maybe you feel stuck. And I'm not talking about a relationship or I feel like, man, God, I know there's something more. And I have to tell you, at my age, I have these conversations all the time with worship pastors and church leaders across the country who just feel like they're not supposed to be where they are, that there's something else. They just don't know what it is. And they're terrified to walk away from what they're doing because they don't know what's on the other side. All they have is a gut feeling. Again, I have 4 or 5 more stories about that where I just had, I used to call it the stirring of the waters of my heart. Like there was something started happening in my heart where I started to get uncomfortable, where I started to feel like there's more for me than what I'm doing right now, or that my journey is done. In fact, I've heard the Holy Spirit tell me several times, your task is complete. You've done what I've asked you to do. So now I'm going to call you to move on. So, all of that rolled together, that uncomfortable feeling, that stirring of the waters of your heart, that maybe that kind of that voice in the back of your mind that says it's time to move on. When all those start to rumble in me, I know I'm getting ready to take a step of faith and change, pretty much radically change what I'm doing.
Well, he's probably a pretty good friend of yours. Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Oh yeah,
you probably met that guy.
Yeah, I know Stephen.
Yeah, didn't he write that song "More to This Life"? And I was just actually quickly Googling the lyrics.
I think that's his best record, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that was his second record, I believe.
That is More to This Life. So it is the title track, I think you would say, in the industry, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Got that right. 1989, just for the record for me, that actually makes me feel even older because I thought that record was later in his catalog, if you will. But yeah, he says, more to this life, more than living, more than dying, more than trying to make it through the day. These are some of the lyrics, obviously. More to this life, more than these eyes can see alone. There's more to this life. So I got to ask a for him question. Am I permitted to do that? I know I really wanted to sit around Andy, but I got to get a for him question out of the way.
Yeah,
but it does kind of involve you a little bit. So a little bit of a background. These are my probably 4 or 3 favorite for him songs.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot. These are my 3. So for you as an artist, if I said you can only sing these 3 songs, you're at a concert, you can only sing these 3 songs. You can't go grab any others. You can't say, well, I really like this one, or these are the 3 you got. Okay. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
You can only pick one. Measure of a Man, A Man You Would Write About, Future Generations.
Oh, wow.
To give you a little bit of context, you're at a men's gathering. We don't say retreat at our church, men's retreat. We don't say that. We say men advance because men advance. We don't retreat. So at our church, we call it a men's advance. So there's the premise.
That's
You're
good.
at a men's advance.
I like that.
Not a retreat. And I say, Andy, here's the mic.
Mm-hmm.
Your boys are there. If that helps, I don't know. I think you can handle it by yourself, by the way, because I've heard you on those songs. You're pretty good with them, but you're okay by yourself too. What do you sing?
Well, I'd probably have to go with Man You'd Write About. This because there's a lot behind that song. First of all, if I'm going to sing at a men's conference or a men's advance, I think that message probably speaks louder to the common man in the room who's trying to figure out who they are and what their purpose is in life. I remember hearing that song when they were writing it, and I was like, that's my song. Like, that's my story. In fact, that was my dad's favorite song. He passed away in 2008. That was his favorite song because he felt like it told the story of his life. So there was some really deep connection with me. Doesn't matter how tall you stand. I've always been the shortest guy in the room. I'm 5'9", and it's crazy. I'm 3 to 4 inches shorter than the other guys in For Him. And even the church that I've been a part of for the last 16, 17 years, man, everybody's like 6'2", 6'3", everywhere at the church. And I'm like, man, it's just, even all my best friends, the guys I play golf with, the guys I work out with, the people that I just do life with, they're all 3, 4 inches taller than me. I've always been the shortest guy in the room. And that comes with some, I don't know, its own humility factor where you feel like you're trying to measure up. You're trying to bow up. You're trying to look larger than you are. And I don't know, for guys, that's a thing. I think you hear it called little man's disease. They were always trying to make up for the lack of height. That song just kind of hit me early on. And, I continue to sing that song in some form or fashion today. I mean, for future generations, that song's always going to be a legendary song for me and for the group. I think if I had to choose between the 3 to be kind of a life song and a song that I would take with me to be Measure of a Man for sure.
I think that was the first song I heard from you guys was Future Generations, speaking of that one. And it was actually sang by a gal in our church.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know who For Him was. I mean, I like the name because
Well, we did put it in a girl's key.
Are you being funny or are you being serious?
No, I'm being half and half.
All right.
That Christian music's so famous for putting songs way too high keys for anybody else to sing.
But I think that was the first time I got exposed to you guys was in that church moment. And Mary Chastain, I don't know where she is now, but she sang it, and she sang it really well. She did you guys proud in future generations. And then I think I heard it again years later. I think at that Promise Keepers, I think you guys probably sang it there as well.
I'm sure that would have been a song we've done at Promise
I'm
Keepers,
testing the memories, so I don't know. I don't have any video evidence of being there, but I was there. So Autzen Stadium, go Ducks. Ugh, can't believe I said that. So Andy, I'm wondering about this because nowadays for you, if we're catching up with where you are and where God has you, is as you mentioned, you are in a worship kind of leading role. Mm-hmm. You're helping kind of mold and make, in some respects, performers. And maybe I'm using that word wrong. Worship leaders. I hate the word performance in that respect. What leads you to do that? You talk about that stirring water, when you had that walkaway college moment.
Yeah.
What's that stirring for you when you see a worship leader or you experience a worship leader, maybe not of a level of a Tomlin, but you see them maybe with that potential, perhaps? What does that feel like?
Yeah. So actually, let me touch on that performer topic just for a brief second. Read the Old Testament. When we see worship and we see people who are involved in worship in the Old Testament, I think the word performance is appropriate. That God wants us to perform for Him. Now, it doesn't mean that we perform for others, but we perform for Him. We actually do our best, and we create something beautiful for Him as a performance. So I just want a little sidetrack there. The thing that started changing my heart, it was probably, maybe around 2007, 2008, when I think I'd completely gotten touring and my CCM career kind of out of my system. I really wasn't doing it anymore. I was pretty much disconnected from all of that. And I was 100% into being a worship pastor. And there's a difference between artist and worship leader. Artist is all about, hey, look at me, love who I am, love the art that I'm making, and please buy it and make me feel good about myself. A worship leader or a worship pastor uses those gifts in a different way. They do draw your eye and your ear to them, but then they want to push it off to someone else, Jesus, to God, to other people, honestly. And that's what a pastor does. A pastor is, and a leader really is going to want to make other people shine. So that just became a process for me. I can't tell you when it happened. It didn't happen overnight because I think I was pretty much still in performance mode for several years as a worship pastor, just because that's all I knew. And I think God was okay with that, was allowing me some space and time to transition. It was when I was able, and I do remember several moments of this, Neil, there were several moments where I would pour my knowledge into another worship leader and then watch them go up a level and actually do what I had helped them to do. There was something that was so satisfying for me that was at the moment almost as satisfying as singing the song myself and hearing the reaction and feeling the reaction of the crowd. And that just became something that, again, I just started to shift all of my emphasis of who I was, maybe not away from performing, because I still did that and I still do that. But there's a gratification and a satisfaction in teaching someone to do what I can do and watching them excel at it. And so I think that's where that has changed in my life. That's why I love coaching worship leaders and worship pastors, why I love teaching vocal performance. I love seeing people get over hurdles that they can't get over by themselves. They can't figure out how to do. And that's really rewarding, especially at my age.
Can everyone sing?
No, I don't think they can. My dad and I used to have this argument a lot. He was under the impression that everybody could. And I'm just like, I don't know. Because I hear a lot of people that are tone deaf, and I don't know that you can teach. There are certain things that I can't do. I can't roll my R's. I can't wiggle my ears. Certain things that I've tried to teach my son and my wife how to whistle forever, and they can't do it. There's certain things that certain bodies can't do. And I feel like singing is one of those things. Either you have it or you don't. I know just as many people who struggle to match pitch and have tone control as I do people that it comes naturally to. So yeah, I think there are two types of people, those who can sing and those who can't.
I bring that up just to help you. I've always wanted to play guitar. Mm-hmm. In my life, I think I've owned maybe about 6 different guitars, any juncture of my life, all with the intention of, I'm going to be a worship leader. I'm going to be on stage. It's going to be amazing. And I ended up buying a guitar about, again, 4 years ago, roughly. And there's a picture of me at our church on stage with my guitar, like ready to like strum. Got my North Carolina guitar strap. By the way, it took some time to find that. Thank you, eBay. And I remember when the picture was taken, because a friend of mine says, oh, let's get a shot of our new worship leader. And I think I even posted it to social because again, so excited about like, okay, I'm going to really do it this time. And then we had this shift in our leadership at church in our youth department, which I've been a youth guy, since I was 19. I'm 42 now. And I absolutely thought the idea of the direction we were going to head in was going to fail. Absolutely flop. I let it be known, like, I'm out. And maybe that's what a little bit inspired this walk away season that we're in, because I've had moments in my life, much like you, a stirring where I'm like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to jump. And again, it doesn't always have to be negative. And I love that you said that, by the way. In that, so I leave youth. I'm still trying to learn guitar. And a friend of mine, another friend, came and said, listen, I don't know how to tell you this, but you can't sing. And in order to lead worship,
yeah, it's prerequisite.
You gotta be able to sing. You're trying to be somebody you're not. And so I ended up selling the guitar to the gentleman that you heard at the beginning. I sold it to him. And to this day, I don't know if he's ever played it. But that money that I made off of the sale, sponsored or funded.
Oh, wow.
I will always remember that moment, realizing I'm not a worship guy. I'm not a singer, but I love to communicate.
Well, I think, hey, thank God for people who are honest in the best way. I've done that. I've done that for a lot of people too, that think they can sing, and maybe they're trying out for my worship team, or they want to be a part of what we're doing. And, I feel it's my duty to say, look, I'm a professional. I've been doing this my whole life. This is how I make my living. And you have to trust me when I say, you can't do this. This is not a future for you. So I want to let you drop this now before you spend too much time on it and try to chase it too far, because you could be doing something else that would be beneficial in your life. And I don't want you to spend all this money and time trying to chase something that isn't going to happen. So thank God for someone who is honest with you in your life.
My wife was also in the headset, if you will, saying no. I bring that up to illustrate a little bit, to say that's got to be really hard. I mean, imagining I'm trying to, again, be in those shoes that we're in.
Sure.
But it's got to be really hard for you to say to somebody, guy, girl, I'm guessing it probably doesn't matter, because either you have it or you don't, kind of from the sound of what you're saying, which I respect.
Right.
But for me, when I hear that, how hard is that for you to switch gears for somebody, or is it easy, or is it ever, I don't know. Is there a struggle there in any way, or you just know? For
me personally, no, not really, because part of my personality, I think I'm very blunt. I like honesty. I don't like anybody patronizing me. So I don't patronize other people. My wife tells me, she's like, babe, you got to sugarcoat things a little bit more because I pretty much I'm pretty quick to cut people. I think I'm doing them a favor, and I'm sure I can get better at that. Here's the thing. When you do it a couple of times, I mean, I've had to let people go on my staff. And the first time you have to do it, it's terrifying. But after you do it a couple of times, you actually find it as just part of the nature of life. What you're not doing is destroying their lives. What you're doing is closing one door and helping them open another. And that's what I look at this situation. When I tell somebody, you're not good at this, you need to do something else, I'm not destroying them. I'm just helping them close a door that they're trying to open. I'm letting them know that door is never going to open for you. Let me help you open another door. And I will tell you this on the flip side of this, Neil, is that when I do have to have that difficult conversation with someone, I try to balance that with, well, let me help you find, or do my best to help you find something you are good at. Where can you serve? Where can you take this passion that you have for singing that's not going to happen and apply that somewhere else? Because obviously you have a motor that's running and you want to do something with your life, and you want to express yourself. So let me help you solve that puzzle. And that's something I'm good at as well. And again, that's just part of being a leader for a long time, is that you want to lead people. You don't want to necessarily lead people away from something if you're not leading them towards something that's even better than they're giving up.
I feel like your church needs to do like a parody on, American Idol, and you could be Simon. I don't know. Maybe that's mean. I don't know.
Could be. Yeah, it could be.
But I also think, just to help, and maybe this is just a reach perhaps, but it's that math brain in yours.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense.
Right.
2 plus 2, this isn't equaling 6.
2 plus 2 always equals 4.
Yes, thank you. And for you, it is. I don't know. Maybe it's that analytical, like looking at numbers, looking at things like that. That's probably still in the wheelhouse. I'm imagining.
Mm-hmm.
So Andy, I'm curious about this for you. Going back to the stage and going back to that. Now I know for me personally, I loved being on stage. Still do. I'll admit it openly. It became a drug for me from a standpoint of I love the accolation. I was not singing, as I mentioned. I was more preaching or presenting God's word, but I would get off the stage, especially younger years. Growing up in an older church, everybody was your grandmother and grandfather. Maybe you had a few of those churches in your wheelhouse too. But, I'd get off the stage and everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh, how you told that story of, the woman at the well. It's never been told better. By the way, John 4:4, if I believe. So we're sticking with the 4 theme here. But in that, was there ever a danger in that for you? Coming off the stage or even now, is that a struggle or in it? And if it hasn't been, how would you coach somebody so it's not their struggle?
Yeah, constantly an issue. The spotlight is a drug. When you see your face up on that big screen, when people know your name. And here's the thing about worship leaders, we have to remember they're the second most visible people in any church. Pastor being number 1, the person who has the second most stage time at any church is the worship leader. It's the first person people see. There's something romantic about the arts. When you can move people's hearts, we can command people's attention with your gift. Yeah, let's take it all the way back to Lucifer. That was Lucifer's gift. Lucifer was one of the worship leaders in heaven. We know this in the book of Ezekiel, that he was one of the cherubim that would encircle the throne of God. And we read about that in Revelation. What did the cherubim do? They circled the throne of God, crying, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. They were the proclaimers of the greatness of God. Lucifer was deceived by his own beauty and his posture, and that led to his downfall. And, you think about it, some of the most gross people in the world are artists. Right? They're the ones always pushing all of the boundaries of what's acceptable and what's moral. It's in the arts that we see all of that. And so don't be deceived that just because you're a Christian and you display your art in church, that you're not subject to that. That's just a natural thing that comes with the gift that you've been given. So it's a very powerful tool that you have to learn how to wield with humility. And yes, that is something that I continue to deal with, maybe not as much as I did when I was younger. And I was getting paid to go on tour, and we had, thousands of people in the room buying tickets, and your songs are number 1 on the radio and all that kind of stuff. That can be like a drug. And then when it's taken away, what happens when your drug is taken away? You go through withdrawals, you want it back. And so you have to learn that your gift is for a purpose and for a season sometimes. Yeah, we have to understand who we are. First of all, if we understand who God is and understand who we are, we have to keep those ideas in us at all times. The artist has to be subject to the person who gave us the art. And if the person who gave us the art, which is God, says, don't do that, do it this way, it's not your time yet, I don't want you on stage right now, I want you to go do this, we have to be okay with that. And artists want more and more and more and more, bigger, 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 flashier, greater, me. This is what's tough about young worship leaders who have not had any theological training, who have not had really good mentors or coaches around them. They take the stage and they're given all of this screen time. They're saying, hey, just do what you do well. We'll pay you. We'll give you all these opportunities. You can make records. You can write songs. And there's nobody walking them, holding their hand, just saying, hey, be careful about this. Let me tell you what this is really all about. That's why, again, I'm kind of promoting what I do here. That's why coaching and mentoring is so important. And I'm glad I had that in my life. If I didn't have that in my life in my 20s and 30s, I don't know where I would be today.
So I'm curious about this. You mentioned being a worship guy. You mentioned kind of training worship folks. Hey, if there's somebody out there right now that is that maybe in their mind thinking, hey, I'm the next Chris Tomlin. I'm the next Lincoln Brewster. By the way, I'm trying to get my hair like Lincoln. So if you could talk to him and find out what he's using.
Good luck with that.
That would help me. He's so amazing. His hair's amazing. And his guitar skills, they're okay. In any event, teasing, of course. But if somebody right now is listening to you and they're like, you know what? I would love to know more about how I can be a better worship person, better worship leader. How would they get in touch with you if that's something you're even offering? I don't even know. Help us with that.
I do. I have a limited availability, but I love connecting with worship pastors literally around the world. And I do that on a daily basis. And so I offer coaching and mentoring, also artist development. I'm doing that as well. You can find me at andychrisman.net. That's my website. Or basically, Neil, the way you reached out to me, just find me on Instagram, send me a DM on Instagram at Andy Chrisman. So I do that full time. I work with churches. I help worship teams create a culture of worship that's lasting and can produce fruit. Work with executive teams to help them find and nurture future worship pastors and create pipelines for worship. I also lead worship at churches across the country, and I have a few weekends a year that I have available that I travel across the country and lead worship at different churches. I've got some other things happening. You'll be able to go to andychrisman.net and download my vocal curriculum. It's called the Chrisman Vocal Method, and that's available. That'll be available for subscription, where you can basically, I tell you all my secrets that I've learned over 30 years on how to be the best vocalist that you can be. So that's happening. Look for a ministry called the Worship Table that I am developing. We'll kick off in November with my friends Michael Neal and Mark Harris of For Him, and it'll be a place where worship pastors can come together and create community and really encourage one another. And then finally, I have a syndicated radio show that's on 430 stations around the world. It's called Worship with Andy Chrisman. And I have worship leaders and artists on every single week. I play 2 hours of the best in modern worship music. And it's really cool. It's been on for 17 years now. And we have 5 to 10 million listeners estimated every single weekend. So all that information, if you want to hear my show on the weekends, if you want to contact me and see if I'm available for mentoring and coaching, if it's a right fit, you can find all that at andychrisman.net.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andy. Appreciate that. So we will definitely list that in our show notes. So take a look at that. Well, again, I think that's such a powerful thing. And I'm glad you talked about that, truly, because I think so many times, I don't know, I just think so many times an artist wants what they want. I think for me, again, I go back to this idea that it becomes so intoxicating. And I guess for me, what I'm trying to figure out is there really isn't a way to stop it, is there?
No, it's not a sin to want what you want. In fact, that's part of the gift that God gave you as an artist, is to push and create. Look, there's no end to God. We have not seen the end of God. I mean, look at these new, is it the James Webb telescope? These new telescopes that are looking farther and clearer into the universe than we ever have. And we're seeing more and more and more. It's mind boggling what we haven't even discovered in the universe yet. Well, the Bible is pretty clear that we'll never see the end of God. If God is endless, then what he gives us is endless, and what the possibilities are endless. So the artist should never be satisfied. The artist should never say, well, that's all there is to find. That's all there is to do. I'll just stay right here. No, the artist always has that burning desire to continue what's out there. Let's push the edges. It's just that you've got to be careful that you align yourself with biblical principles so that you push those edges in the right way, and that what you're doing is just revealing more of who God is and his nature.
Yeah, I think that's great wisdom there. I've been a few artists through the years. When I meet them, I mean, that's like one of my number one questions is, how do you avoid that? And they said, I don't think you can. I love that you're kind of echoing that. Andy, I'm curious about this for you guys. And when I say you guys, I'm going to go to a for him question again, and maybe make this specific if we can, to try to make it you. I know you could probably speak for the other guys because you know each other so well, brothers in some respects.
Yeah.
Is there a lesson that you really took away with that time together? And I know there were probably many, but if you could narrow it down to a few, or maybe there's a single one, I don't know, that you really walked away with and said, man, I learned this about myself, or I learned this about performing, or I learned this about.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I learned is that everyone is unique. And that was what was, I think, great about For Him was we were all very unique. We had unique voices. We had different opinions on what music should be and where it should go, what we should be saying, what we should be doing in ministry. But the beauty was in the compromise of how we could come together we were together for 20 years, and we had a lot of fights. We had a lot of disagreements, but in the end, we made beautiful art and we got our message across, that those songs are still out there blessing people. I mean, even you, Neil, just talking about listening to some of those songs again, like they're still part of your life, and you hear them again, you go, oh man, I remember that was an important song for me. That's what I brought into ministry, church ministry. And a lot of the other things that I'm doing is I want people to be themselves. And that's just something I think it took me a while to understand was that I didn't have to conform to what somebody else wanted me to be, that I was a unique person. God had created me uniquely apart from anybody else. And that's another miracle of God, that he can make billions and billions of unique individuals where no two are exactly the same. You can come together as a group and respect one another and celebrate the differences in each other and listen to each other's different opinions. And I think that's what's wrong with our country right now, is we don't want to hear a differing opinion than what we believe and what we hold to be as ideal. And man, that's not what I think the spirit of Christianity is at all. It's like, let's come together, let's reason together, and let's talk this out. I read a book a while back called Leaving Buddha. It was about a Buddhist monk who left the Buddhist faith and became a Christian. Fascinating book. But one of the things that really intrigued me was the Buddhist concept of come together with differing ideas and just talk about them. And that was part of their culture. We don't do that as much. We don't do that in a very healthy way in Christianity. We don't come from different sides and reason together. We tend to go to our different camps and say, well, I'm right and they're wrong. One of the things I learned from For Him and working with so many other artists in Christian music is that's actually a really good thing, because God is not one idea. God is not defined by one set of values. He is everything. Now, he's righteous and he's holy. He is who he is according to Scripture. But there's so much more of God to discover that I think if we can just continue to come together, that's one of the things, again, your original question, what did I learn? What's one of the greatest lessons I learned in For Him was that all four of us could come together from different backgrounds and different styles of music and different ideas of what our band should be and make something beautiful for 20 years.
Yeah. Thank you, Caleb 90s. A little shout out to Caleb 90s. I think I sent you a picture the other day. I was in a customer's car and I jumped in the radio and it was on. I didn't turn it to it, by the way. It was on. And I just thought it was a little God wink for me, at least.
Yeah.
Wonder who I'm going to be talking to later this week. It was just, I was like, oh, hold on. I got a red light. It was at a red light. No, I wasn't like driving.
Yeah. When it comes to living, that was a deep cut.
Yeah.
I think it was a single, but yeah.
That was fun.
A little more of a deep cut from our catalog.
But it's interesting. I had an opportunity many years ago to meet Peter Furler behind the stage, and
he's a great dude.
Great dude. He could read the phone book to me and I'd go to sleep to it. Just his thick Australian accent. I've always been enamored with that, men or women, doesn't matter. But in that, I asked him, I said, why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep getting on stage? I had a moment to ask him like one real quick question. And he said, man, it's for the love of the people. He said, when I lose the love of the people, I'll get off the stage. When you hear that statement, what does that resonate in your heart? What does that stir in you?
That's exactly one of the things that I mentor and teach worship pastors is you've got to love the people in front of you more than you love the gift that you have, more than the song that you sing. And again, that's a fundamental shift between being an artist who's doing everything for yourself. And I don't care if anybody else likes it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Again, there's not anything intrinsically wrong with that, but when, especially in Christian ministry, you have to love the people more than you love the gift that you have. And that's a hard lesson to learn, because you want to do what you want to do. And you've got to love submission more than being in charge. I love that Peter said that, man. And again, he's a good dude. I've known him for a long time. And I can see that in people who just continue to make music and continue to get on stage, that, they could go somewhere else and make a lot more money and, maybe have a different career, but they love the people. I think that's what always drives me. I don't care if I'm at a church of 10,000 or a church of 100. I just love seeing people sing and connect and see Jesus in a way maybe they haven't seen him before. And man, when you open your mouth and sing and that heart opens up, I love serving people in that way.
So again, I grew up in the church. I'm an Awana kid. I walked the aisle at some point in time, Southern Baptist Church in California, Carlsbad. I don't know if you guys ever made it that far, west and south.
Oh yeah.
But I remember as my later years grew and I was getting more and more opportunities to speak, youth conferences, youth events, maybe some of the events I was creating, I was generally the speaker that would end the night or end our time together or end our weekend. And I would always get a worship group or a band. I would try because, again, worship is an experience. When I was getting ready to speak, I would have a hard time worshiping because I would be going over my talk. I would be going over, okay, am I going to make sure we, in my mind, I'm scripting out a lot of maybe rehearsing what I'm going to say, making sure I'm hitting all my points that I feel God's laying on my heart to hit. So I never really grew up appreciating or being able to worship fully. How do you as an artist, when you maybe know somebody's walking through that, does that hurt you? Does that help you? Maybe help me be a better worshiper, I guess is what I'm asking, Andy.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not sure I know how to do it well, to be honest with you, Neil. I've been a performing musician pretty much my whole life. So for me to be in the congregation and just let myself go and not analyze how someone's singing or what the transitions are between their songs or why did you choose that song? That doesn't make any sense. That guitar tone is terrible. Man, that drummer probably can't hear the click very well. I would not have put those voices together on stage. That's a bad mix of voices. Everything. The mix is bad. They need to turn the snare down. I can't hear the loop. That's the heart of the song is the loop. Where's the loop? Man, that is going through my head. That's hard to turn off. I'm not sure really how to answer that because I struggle with it as well. And, I know a lot of pastors that I really respect who don't go into worship. They're backstage and they're watching it on a monitor and they're still going through their notes. I'm not gonna walk in there and chastise them and say, you need to get out here to worship because I know what they're doing is going to be important. I don't know how much they're worshiping on their own or in different scenarios. So I think it's just part of that job. I think about the Levites in the Old Testament. Those dudes worked hard, man. They ran a slaughterhouse 24/7. But how much did they worship? I think they were just in it. They were so close to the glory of God the whole time that they were just in perpetual worship all the time. The people who come into our churches, Neil, they're typically not worshiping throughout the week. They're in jobs where God's not talked about. They're not actively listening to worship music or Christian music throughout the week. They're not studying the Bible 2 and 3 hours a day like maybe a church staff member is going to do. You think about being on a church staff, dude, that's all we do is we're doing our job and studying the Word of God as we do it so we can know what God wants. But people in the secular world, typically that's not their situation. They're coming to church on Sunday and opening their mouths in praise for the first time in 7 days. They're living in a different world than maybe the priests or the full-time staff members at a church or a worship leader who's listening to worship music all week and putting sets together and discipling and pastoring the people that work for them or serve under them. So I think there's a little bit of a grace there. Honestly, should we worship more? Absolutely. I mean, there's never a limit on how much we should worship. And can we get better at disengaging and not being a critic of everything we hear and just relaxing? There are times I can get there. It just takes me a little bit longer than it does the average person that walks in on Sunday morning.
That's funny you say that. I don't have that critical of an ear, but I do know when stuff sounds a little off. And I've like gone to our sound people. I'm like, hey, and they're like, go away. They put up the hand. I'm like, all right, guys, I'm just going to go back here. But I'm wondering about this too for you and in looking at your musical journey. I think it was 2004, roughly, wasn't it? Is that when One came out? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Your solo album? What was the reason behind the solo album?
I think I was searching. We opened up the podcast today about walkaway moments. And, I felt in 1999, God spoke very clearly to me that it was time to go do something else. And I'd always had that little seed that had been planted in my mind, in my heart, back when I was a teenager, that I was supposed to be a worship pastor. I was supposed to lead people in worship. And so I was struggling with how far is For Him supposed to go? What's my role in it? I just felt like the stirring of the waters of my heart around 99, that I was supposed to take a step and go do something else. And I didn't know what it was. And I was really honest with the other guys. I'm just like, I know I'm supposed to go do something else, but I don't know. I don't have any of these big plans that are percolating behind the scenes. So we all kind of agreed, hey, let's just stretch our wings. Let's all see what else we have that we can do besides For Him. And I was the first one to step out and make a solo record. I felt like there were things that I wanted to say that hadn't been said in For Him yet. I felt like there were some musical ideas in me weren't really being showcased in For Him. And, I did that one solo record and I felt like, there it is. That's what I wanted to do. I kind of proved to myself, I can write a record. I can co-produce a record. I can make it sound the way I want. And I was really happy with it. I go back and listen to it every once in a while and go, hey, that was a good record. I really enjoyed doing that. I'm proud of that. But once I did it, funny because I was on kind of a new label that Gary Chapman had started. I had some guys that I was working with that were really excited about what I was doing. And then I got out and started doing radio tours and doing showcases as a new artist. And I was like, can I say the word? Can I say sucks? This sucks.
Yeah. Sucks.
I've been to the mountaintop with For Him. Like we were there at the top, right? 3-time group of the year, #1 songs everywhere. And now I'm being treated like a new artist. And I'm like, I'm not a new artist. You're still playing my songs and For Him on rotation. I'm not a new artist. And it just sucked. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. I am not starting over again in the record industry. And, by 2004, dude, everything had changed. The record industry, and especially in Christian music, was changing rapidly. It wasn't what I grew up in and came up in. I don't know. I felt like the mystery was gone. The excitement was gone. And I was like, okay, I did it. I made a record. I'm proud of it. My grandkids listen to it, which listen, that's exciting. And when my grandkids are singing my songs back to me from that record, I'm just like, okay, that was worth it. That was worth that little side journey there. And so after that, I felt like I'd scratched that itch and it was time to go do something else.
I'm still trying to get around Andy Chrisman as a grandpa.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
bro, not hitting
5 grandkids, man.
You are so young looking and
well,
you've taken care of yourself. You talk about hitting the gym. I can tell you don't skip arm day or leg day, probably. But you talk about wings and you talk about spreading your wings. Yeah. That's, if I was going to, again, if we're sticking with the 4 theme, that would probably be in there, my 4th favorite. And that's that song Wings, partly because you guys lead off with talking about the Wright brothers and the flight. Yeah. And so being a North Carolina guy, I'm like, I always have resonated with that one. And so I actually put it on the other day and I was like, man, this is such a good song. And I was like, it's a great song. 90s though.
Yeah.
So 90s. I mean, I was going to put you on the spot and see if you could sing a little, but if you don't want to, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, all right.
We'll see if it just, I'm not a dance monkey dance kind of guy. If it just comes out naturally.
Come on. Dance monkey dance. If it comes out naturally, I'm just teasing.
It'll happen.
I'm just teasing. I was going to do that to you. But Andy, we like to end the show. We started with some silliness. We also like to kind of end it with some silliness. So I end the show typically with this. I used to call it a game. My advisor board said, stop calling it a game. It's not a game. Nobody wins anything. Nobody gets a prize. It's just silliness at the end. Okay? Just call it what it is. Silliness at the end. I'm like, okay, fine. So here it is. We just end the show with some silliness at the end. I call it senseless.
Okay.
So we're going to play this together. Now, I tried really hard. By the way, Amazon, I love them, but they failed me because I did try to get an Oklahoma State cup for our time together. I'm teasing, of course, because I would never buy anything
Orange doesn't suit you, bro.
State. No, orange, and orange is bad. I have an orange shirt behind me that I'm going to be putting on later, and I'm regretting those life choices right now. But in that, so there is a die in here, and it is a light blue clap. So North Carolina, here we go. So I'm going to roll for you. And it's this random questions we ask about our senses.
All right.
And you got a number 6.
Oh, great.
Which is the wild card. Who knows what's going to happen here? So number 6 is this. One person, only one. Don't try to bring 2. Only one. One person you want to spend the weekend with. And what would you do? Now, weekend being like Friday night till Sunday night, just to help.
Well, I mean, if I don't say my wife, I'm in big trouble with her, right? So
you can say whoever you want. Again, judgment-free zone.
Let's see. Well, yeah, I mean, the correct answer is my wife, but that's kind of obvious and that's no fun. So for this conversation. So think about it here for a second. Man, I can't narrow it down. I really can't. I have too many friends would be mad at me if they heard this podcast, but just someone, I would just say someone that we could just go play like 36 holes of golf every day for the entire weekend.
All right. I'll bail you out. I'll give you a life preserver. So you're not having to drop a name and, Mark Harris is mad because you didn't mention so-and-so or, whatever. How about that? I'll help you out. If there was a golfer, because I know you love to golf, right?
Oh yeah.
If there was a golfer, I said, hey, Andy, you can go play with blank for a weekend. Who do you play with?
Is this somebody I know or is this somebody like...
I'm going to say on the tour or who has played on the tour. Does that help any? I don't know. Again, I'm trying to make you so you don't have to, explain it the next For Him barbecue. With
Tiger,
there you go.
Now that would be cool. If I could spend a weekend with Tiger playing golf and just hear his story, that would be fascinating to me. I've actually gotten to do that with several pro golfers in the past. Lee Jansen's been a friend of mine. in the past and gotten to play golf with him quite a bit. I've got some friends across the country that have played on the tour, and they're always fun to get out on the course with. So, but yeah, if I could spend a weekend playing golf with Tiger, that would, I mean, just the conversation on the course and to hear his story and all that kind of stuff, I think that'd be really cool.
I think it would be, because again, I think getting into that headspace, not only from a golfing standpoint, how he approaches, how he, maybe addresses the ball, but then those life choices that he's made in his past, good and bad. Yeah, I don't know if you know this guy or not. Todd Marinovich from back in the day. Yeah. His jersey actually hangs behind me. I had an opportunity to sit with him, and it was fascinating. Talk about fascinating, about growing up and hearing that story of, what life was like for him growing up and now where he is, and just cool stuff. So he's my kind of go-to person of just spending a weekend with, because it's like, man, you've walked through the depths and the highs, So, well, Andy, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I'm still not sure why and how. I'm not even going to go there. I do want to say thank you so much for what you shared today, and it really means a lot to me that you took some time out of your day to be here.
Thank you, Neil. I enjoyed it.
Well, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, that is it. That is all. Now, I know for some of you, you're trying to still maybe get Google working. Hopefully you weren't doing it while you were listening. Maybe you did. Maybe you're that talented. But I want to ask you this question before we get out of here. What do you worship? What is that thing in your life that you're like, man, I love that. I appreciate that. I show respect and honor to that. Is it the right thing? Is it the wrong thing? I don't know. That's really for up to you to decide. But I want to ask this question because, again, for me, when I get into worship, I take a moment and I try to get quiet. And so my challenge for you this week is, how hard is it to get quiet? How hard is it to get still? One of my favorite people to watch, even to this day, is Mr. Rogers. And I watched a speech recently that he gave when he got an achievement award. And he had the audience sit quietly for 10 seconds. And the cameraman flashes the audience, different famous celebrities of the day. And they're weeping. They're absolutely weeping in that 10 seconds. Because he's calling the audience to think of someone that has helped them along the way. Powerful stuff. Take some time this week and maybe thank that person that's helped you along the way. Get quiet enough to hear that voice of who that might be, and then maybe go and share that. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it as always. And remember this, don't forget, remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.